Hello world and welcome back to another episode of Industrial Foregoing, where today we're going to be talking about how you can actually duplicate your ores passively using meat. So to start off with, we're going to actually need 3 different machines to make this process actually work, but we're going to go over each one individually as we go through this tutorial. So the first thing we're going to need is the washing factory. This is made with some plastic, the advanced machine frame to get going, so you do need to be a little later in the game to get this. 2 diamond gears, the furnace, and then some new items. We have got the meat feeder and the pink slime ingot. Now the pink slime ingot can be made inside the dissolution chamber. It requires 2 gold and 2 iron with a little bit of pink slime inside in order to actually make 1 ingot. So it's 4 ingots for 1 pink slime ingot. So it can be quite expensive in the long run if you were going to use this for a different reason, which we'll show in a different tutorial. The other item is the meat feeder, made with some more plastic iron and some glass bottles. This is a component for making the washing factory, but is also a useful item to actually have in your inventory, as this meat feeder is actually a way of automatically feeding yourself when you are in single player. Now by default it doesn't say that it has an inventory. Even with the book it doesn't actually say really well that there is some sort of internal feeder, but you can fill this up with meat. Now the way we get meat, which we showed off way back in the beginning of this tutorial series, is with the mob slaughter factory. So if I peep into here, let's turn the lights on so these guys can all die. The mob slaughter factory is our way of getting both meat and pink slime. So you're going to need this factory to do any of this process we're doing. Now I've got mechanical dirt here which uses meat to spawn things, but here we have our tank. So all we can do, let's get 2 of these. You can actually use the meat feeder on, say, a black hole just like that, and it's taken all of it. And I believe it took all of it because I was in creative mode. So let's quickly go into survival. There you go. If I whack that on there, there you go. It's now filled up. You can get 512 buckets. The same thing you can do, you can put it onto the machine directly. I've got nothing in here, but I can actually right click on this machine and it will take it out of there as well. But it's good to use it out of a black hole. So how this works now is that I've got 512 meats in here. It's going to take about 130 or so to fill you up, depending on how many haunches down here you have missing. But basically, as you lose your health, as long as this is just in your inventory, it doesn't have to be on your bar, this will just automatically fill up your food. But anyway, back to the washing facility. So here we've just got a little bit of power with our washing factory. Now all you have to do is fill this up with meat, give it power, and give it a raw resource. In this case, we are using raw iron. Now if I turn this on, I've got some speed upgrades in here just to make it a bit faster. What this is going to do is literally it's going to take 100 millibuckets of meat and 1 raw iron and turn it into 100 millibuckets of raw or meat. So there are many different things you can do this for, depending if it's configured in your mod pack. You may not be able to do anything, but at least with the vanilla ores you'll be able to do this. Simply this turns it all into meat. And I have this directly feeding into our next machine here, the Fermentation Station. This is made with any 3 types of logs, 4 plastic, a golden gear, and only a simple machine frame. So this is actually an easier block to use. And this makes the Fermentation Station. If we go in here, it's a bit of a big GUI. Now I have this set in the highest way that you possibly can. We have a couple of different buttons here. We have our power and we have our raw meat, which is being automatically piped in from our washing plant. On the side here, on this button here, we have seal when. So this basically tells this machine when do we want to execute our craft. We can have it when there's a bucket, which is 1,000 millibuckets. We can have it when it's completely full, the whole thing is completely full, so a full 4,000 millibuckets. Or you could do it when it's half full, so every 2,000 millibuckets. It's completely up to you, 1,000, 2,000 or 4,000. From here, we have a couple of different production buttons here. We have 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and 5 times. 2 times doesn't require any type of catalyst. The catalyst is what we have down here. And this is going to turn our meat into our fermented ore, as you see here. So it's just turned their 2,000 into whichever is remaining. Now, before I go into how this works a little bit more, we'll just go over the 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. I have them written up here. So if you have it selected on 2 times, you're for every 1,000 millibuckets of raw meat, you're going to get 6,000 millibuckets of fermented raw meat, essentially, what we have over here, for fermented or meat. If you have it 3 times, it turns 1,000 millibuckets into 9, for 4 times it turns 1 millibuckets into 12, and for 5 it turns 1,000 millibuckets into 15. So essentially it's going to be 1 bucket into 15 buckets, which is quite powerful really. It's a lot more than 5 times. I don't quite understand how the calculation goes on, considering it's 5 times, but essentially you're not actually converting the full bucket, you're converting 100 millibuckets, then timesing that by 5. So for every 100 millibuckets, you have 500 millibuckets come out, and that, if that makes sense. So if you do that 10 times, you have 5 millibuckets times 10, that gives you the 15, or that really should give you 50,000. So I'm not quite sure how this works, but this is how it ends up working. So then inside of here, we have the 2 times. This doesn't require a catalyst. 3 times doesn't require a catalyst, but just more time. So as you can see, the 2 times just is simply 5 seconds. Production 3 times is 45 seconds, and then we have 4 times, which requires 120 seconds and pink slime. That means you just need pink slime in this box, and that will allow it to do the 4 times processing. And then we have 5 times, which is 300 seconds or 5 minutes, and this requires ether gas. Now we went over ether gas a couple of episodes ago back here, so it is another way of actually using ether gas, which I wasn't actually aware of. But that is everything when it comes to the fermentation station. So how do we actually use this fermented ore meat? And this is where we're going to need our last machine. This is the fluid sieving machine, made with 3 iron bars, another advanced machine frame, 2 gold gears, 2 pieces of plastic, and a pink slime. You'll get this sieving machine. Now, in order to get a pink slime ball, you need the dissolution chamber as well, or you need this pink slime at the center and 1 glass pane, and this will give you 1 pink slime per glass pane. Very, very simple. Now, I've got this set up in an entire unit here, so I've moved over what we already had. We've got some raw ore going into the washing with liquid meat, turning into raw ore meat. That's then being fermented. I only have this on 4 times with the pink slime, just to show you how pink slime works. And then that goes into the sieve. Now the sieve just requires the fermented ore, some power, and then it needs sand. Now it's going to use 1 sand for every 100 millibuckets of meat. Now I've got loads of speed upgrades on here, so it's actually more or less doing 3 at a time for me, but it would do only 1 at a time. Now you can have up to 4 stacks in here, so you can sort of fill it up and leave it for a little bit, but I've got ourselves a black hole unit here automatically refueling this with sand. Now, as I said, how it works is 1 millibucket turns into 1 dust. So essentially that's how you're getting all your extras. So if you go all the way back to the beginning here, you can turn 1,000 millibuckets into 15,000 millibuckets. And over here, we are turning we are turning 1 ore. We're turning 1 ore, 1 meat into 100 millibuckets. So for every 10 ore, you get 10 of this, and then for every 10 ore you're going to get 150 here. So I don't quite know how it works out, but you essentially are turning 1 raw ore into 100 millibuckets. That 100 millibuckets is turning into 1,500 millibuckets, and then for every 100 millibuckets over here it turns into 1 ore. So it ends up being a little bit more than 5 times ore processing, since it's more like 150 times ore processing. Now, just to see if my math really is correct, I have made ourselves a separate system, and we're going to fill this up. It's all filled up to the max. It's all got max upgrades, and it's the highest tier stuff that we have. But let's actually just test to see if we get 1 raw iron ingot, 1 raw iron thing. So we put that in there, it's turned into our ore, and that's gone into here. Now this needs to be a full bucket, so we are actually going to need 9 more of these. So there we have our 10 millibuckets. Now this is going to take 90 seconds, so I'll be back in a minute. There you go, that's turned us into the 15,000 like we said. So let's output that over to here now, and that's going to start turning into sand. I'm actually having to put more sand into here, so let's keep this going. And I cannot believe this, I need to fill up with sand again. And there we go. 150 iron, so it's not really 5 timesing like it says. We've turned 10 into 150. So yeah, this is quite powerful. It's more 1 to 15 times than it is simply 5 times ore processing. Now the last thing I want to show, which is surprising that I haven't shown this off earlier, is the Resourceful Furnace, made with a pity machine frame, 4 plastic, 2 furnaces, a bucket and a gold gear. This is simply going to be able to smelt all of these dusts. So I've got this automatically pumping into here. You can only put 3 in here at a time, but you can't put, say, a whole stack. I'm clicking here and you can't put a whole stack in, unfortunately. Only 1 can go in at a time. Now this does create a little bit of essence, and you can have up to 3 stacks being inside of here. I do have these automatically pumping out into a Supreme Black Hole unit and tank to store respective amounts. But this only seems to pump out when it's not actually doing anything for a bit of time. So as you can see here, it is pumping out now, it's not working. But once it does start working and does a craft, it sort of hangs a little bit. So I don't know why that is, but it is. Also, this has a slow transfer rate. If you did have a conveyor belt between these machines, it would actually input a lot quicker, but then you have the chance of having things sticking outside and actually being voided from not going inside. So I'd still recommend have this slower rate because this is still rather fast with all these upgrades. So that's going to be everything when it comes to 15 times ore processing with Industrial Foregoing. I cannot believe how much that is. 15 times, 10 to 150. That's insane. If this video helped you in any way, shape or form, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and ring the bell button to stay notified when these videos go live. And if you haven't already, join the Discord. Link is down in the description. Until next time, guys, take care.